We often hear about the Epstein files in the news, but many are still confused about what is really hidden behind these documents. What exactly are these files, and why have they become a source of fear for the most powerful people in the world? But before everything, who really is Jeffrey Epstein, and what was he in the eyes of the elite before his operations were exposed? Who are the well-known billionaires, politicians, and celebrities whose names were implicated in his flight logs and black book? In this 2026, due to the release of millions of new documents, secrets that have long been hidden from the public are gradually being revealed. Are you ready to know the whole truth behind each chapter of this story? Before we begin, maybe you can like this video. This is a big deal for us content creators. Thank you very much. Jeffrey Epstein was born on the 20th of January 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. His family did not come from wealth or a high social class. His father, Seymour Epstein, worked as a groundskeeper and maintenance worker for the New York City Parks Department. He grew up in a simple apartment and studied in public schools in Brooklyn. During his youth, he was seen as having talent in mathematics and music. So, he entered Cooper Union early, and then the Courant Institute of Mathematical Sciences at New York University. However, based on the records that appeared in the Epstein files, he never finished his studies and did not hold any college degree. In 1974, at the age of 21, one of the biggest mysteries in his career happened. Despite the lack of credentials, he was accepted as a physics and mathematics teacher at Dalton School. Dalton is one of the most exclusive and expensive private schools in Manhattan, where the children of the wealthiest families in New York study. According to the investigations, the headmaster of the school, Donald Barr, was the one who took her. During his 2 years at Dalton, Epstein did more than just teach. He used the opportunity to befriend the parents of his students who were big time in the finance and politics industry. There, he first gained access to the world of the elite. By 1976, Epstein left teaching and entered Wall Street. With the help of the students' parents at Dalton, he got a job at Bear Stearns, a large investment bank. He started as a junior assistant, but because of his ability in networking and creating complicated financial strategies, he quickly rose up. In just 4 years, he became a limited partner in the firm. During this time, he began to build his image as a financial genius. In 1980, he was even featured in Cosmopolitan magazine as Bachelor of the Month. He described himself as a New York dynamo who loves math and beautiful women. However, there were irregularities that appeared in the documents of the National Association of Securities Dealers, NASD. According to the records, Epstein had no official registration with them during the time he claimed to be an options trader at Bear Stearns. In 1981, he was removed from the firm due to issues with internal regulations and ethics. Instead of failing, Epstein used his learnings and connections to build his own company, J. Epstein and Company, in 1982. He told the public that he only accepts clients with a net worth of at least $1 billion. Here is where his ascent into the world of high-stakes finance began, where his wealth grew rapidly, even without a clear explanation of where his funds were really coming from. The establishment of Epstein's own firm became the bridge for him to get to know the person who would change the course of his wealth, Leslie Wexner. Wexner is the billionaire behind L Brands and Victoria's Secret. In the 1980s, Epstein was not just a client of Wexner. Their relationship became so deep that Wexner gave Epstein power of attorney. This means that Epstein had full control over Wexner's money, property, and even business decisions. Because of this trust, a huge amount of funds began to flow into Epstein's hands. One concrete example of this was when Wexner gave Epstein ownership of a giant mansion on the Upper East Side of New York, the Herbert Strauss House, without paying even a single dollar. This property is one of the largest private residences in all of Manhattan, and that's where Epstein began to host dinner parties for the most powerful people in the world. As her connection deepened with the billionaires whom Epstein already knew in London in the early 1990s, Ghislaine and Maxwell. Ghislaine is the daughter of the late British media tycoon Robert Maxwell. Although the Maxwell family's reputation in England was tarnished due to the debts and controversies of her father, Ghislaine brought Epstein into European royalty and high-level social circles. Ghislaine served as Epstein's gatekeeper. She holds the names and addresses of the princes, dukes, and famous personalities in Europe, while Epstein holds the money. Together they created a lifestyle full of luxury. During this time, Epstein acquired his private jet, a Boeing 727, which was later called the Lolita Express, and bought the private island of Little Street, James in the U.S. Virgin Islands for almost $8 million. Epstein used his assets to get closer to world leaders. In the 1990s, he and Donald Trump met frequently. There are times when they were caught on video at parties in Mar-a-Lago in Florida, where they discussed their interest in women. At the same time, Epstein also entered Bill Clinton's inner circle. According to the flight logs that came out in the investigations, Clinton boarded Epstein's jet several times for international trips. Epstein's target was not only politics. He also entered the world of science and academia. He gave large donations to Harvard University and interacted with famous scientists like Stephen Hawking and Oliver Sacks by funding research to plant the image of a philanthropist and intellectual. Epstein's strategy was simple: to create an environment where powerful people would feel comfortable and indebted to him. In his houses in New York, Palm Beach, and Paris, there were always staff ready to serve and always assistants or young women around. These connections served as his protection because he was friends with media owners, government officials, and the billionaires made it difficult for anyone to question where their wealth came from or what was happening inside their properties. This high society image became the perfect cover-up for activities that were just beginning to be noticed by some people around him. Despite his wide influence in high society, Epstein's image began to crack in 1996. The first serious complaint came from Maria Farmer, an artist who was hired by Epstein to make paintings. Maria was sent to Leslie Wexner's estate in Ohio, where Epstein and Maxwell promised her help to advance her career in art. Nevertheless, Maria experienced abuse there. According to her testimony, when she tried to escape and call the police from inside the mansion, she was blocked by Wexner's security staff and locked in a room. When he returned to New York, he immediately reported to the NYPD, but he was sent to the FBI. He talked to the agents and gave all the details, but many years passed without any action on his complaint. In 1997, another complaint came out from model Alicia Arden in Santa Monica, California. Epstein's modus was to introduce himself as a talent scout for Victoria's Secret to gain access to women. He sent Arden to a hotel room for an audition, but there he harassed and manhandled the model. Arden reported this to the local police, but because of the lack of physical evidence and the weight of Epstein's name, the authorities only considered it a case of he said, she said. It did not reach the court and did not hinder Epstein's continued movement in the elite circles. But 2003, journalist Vicky Ward attempted to reveal the truth through a mega profile in Vanity Fair entitled The Talented Mr. Epstein. While conducting the interview, Ward found the siblings Maria and Annie Farmer who were willing to speak on the record about their experiences. When Epstein found out about this, he personally went to the office of the editor of Vanity Fair to protest and threaten a lawsuit. He used his connections with high-level editors to pressure the magazine. In the end, the testimonies of the victims were removed from the final version of the article. The story that came out became a feature that focused only on his wealth and being a money man of mystery, while the issues of abuse remained silent and hidden from the public. During this time, Epstein continued to build what he called the Black Book. This is a list containing over 1,500 names of friends, clients, and associates. This includes the contact details of British royalty, Hollywood stars, and prominent politicians in Washington, D.C. This information, along with the flight logs of his jet, served as his insurance. Because many of these people often visit his properties or ride in his airplane, it became difficult for any government agency to start an investigation without colliding with the interests of powerful people. This silence paved the way for the further expansion of his operations in Florida. The silence in New York was disrupted upon arriving in Palm Beach, Florida, in March 2005. A concerned parent approached the local authorities after receiving information about an incident at a private residence. According to the reports, the inappropriate situation was reported, and it immediately triggered an investigation by local detectives under the Special Investigations Unit. While conducting monitoring in the area, the authorities reported the presence of other potential issues in the community. The investigation is still ongoing, and the authorities are reminding all residents to be careful and alert, and to coordinate with local authorities if they see anything unusual or alarming. Many of these children come from families with money problems or broken homes, because they were easily caught by the promise of quick cash. The police also monitored that bikes and small vehicles were often used to pick up and drop off the children at the back of the mansion. Because of Epstein's wealth, it became very difficult for detectives to obtain evidence inside the house. They did trash pulls, or the retrieval of trash outside the mansion, before it was collected by the garbage truck. Inside those trashes, they obtained handwritten notes, list of girls' names and school records that should not be in the hands of a financier. Receipts for flowers and gifts sent to students were also obtained. These documents confirmed the statements of those who were surprised by the systematic way of targeting certain individuals in the community. In October 2005, the authorities carried out a search warrant inside the mansion. Upon entering the police, They saw a house full of strange and inappropriate decorations, including paintings and materials that were not suitable for the public. They also noticed installed cameras in many corners of the property, including in some rooms. However, investigators discovered that before the police arrived, some of the computers, hard drives, and recording equipment were cut or removed. The computer room only left wires and empty tables. Despite the loss of some materials, the Palm Beach police recorded testimonies from over 30 witnesses that could serve as the basis for a thorough case. The organization of evidence and documentation is ongoing, but while preparing the indictment, Epstein's legal dream team began to act to block the process. Epstein's legal dream team, consisting of prominent lawyers like Alan Dershowitz and Jay Lefkowitz, immediately made a way to stop the federal prosecutors in Florida. While the investigators were preparing a 5-3-page federal indictment with serious sex trafficking and conspiracy charges, Epstein's lawyers began to negotiate with U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta. These conversations were not made inside the court but in private meetings, including an encounter at a hotel in West Palm Beach. This is where the so-called Non-Prosecution Agreement, NPA, began to be formed, an agreement that completely changed the direction of the case. Under the NPA, the federal government agreed not to pursue the serious federal charges against Epstein. In exchange, Epstein will plead guilty to 2 counts of solicitation of prostitution in Florida state court. The most controversial part of this deal is the immunity clause. The document states that the immunity is not only for Epstein, but also for any potential co-conspirators involved in his activities. This means that even if there is evidence against those involved with him in recruitment and abuse, they can no longer be charged by the federal government. Furthermore, the entire negotiation was kept secret from the victims, a direct violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act, CVRA. In 2008, the verdict came in. Instead of rotting in federal prison, Epstein was sentenced to only 18 months in a county jail in Palm Beach, but he only stayed for 13 months. He was also given a work release privilege where he was allowed to go out 6 days a week of Zelda for 12 hours a day to go to his office in West Palm Beach. According to jail records, Epstein's Zelda was often uncuffed, and the deputies assigned to him treated him as a client rather than an inmate. Epstein also paid over $128,000 to the sheriff's office for extra security while he was out for work. When the victims and the original investigators learned about the deal, there was intense anger and dismay. Chief Michael Ryder said that this was the worst failure of the criminal justice system he had seen. Many of the girls who gave testimony felt betrayed by the government because their abusers remained free and were not even named in public. This deal gave Epstein the opportunity to. His name was cleared again, and he returned to his luxurious life with the confidence that he was untouchable because of his connections to the government and the legal system. After Epstein got out of jail in 2009, he immediately returned to his mansion on the Upper East Side of New York. Even though he was officially listed as a Tier 3 sex offender, the highest level for high-risk offenders, he did not hide from the public. Her focus became reputation rebuilding. She hired expensive PR firms to fix her image on the internet. Their strategy is to fill Google with news about his donations to science and philanthropy, to bury the news about his case in Florida. Because of his wealth, he has maintained his connections with intellectuals and powerful people. In 2010, she was photographed while walking in Central Park with Prince Andrew. This meeting happened right after her conviction, showing the public that she was still accepted by British royalty. It was not only Prince Andrew who remained connected to him. Bill Gates also started meeting with Epstein in 2011. Based on the following investigations, they had several meetings at Epstein's mansion to discuss potential donations to the Gates Foundation and other global health projects. Epstein also used the MIT Media Lab in Harvard University to regain social respect. He gave large sums of money to Joy for this, the director of the MIT Media Lab at that time, even though the university knew that he was a convicted sex offender. To avoid revealing the source of the money, Epstein ordered his staff to put the donations under the names of other people or companies. At Harvard, he maintained his own office within the university premises because of his previous donations worth millions of dollars. Inside his mansion in New York, Epstein continued to host dinner parties attended by prominent scientists like Lawrence Krauss and George Church, as well as finance billionaires like Leon Black. In these gatherings, he presents his image as a patron of science. While all this is happening, the victims in Florida and New York continue to observe, many of them. Unbelievable that after all the evidence in 2005, Epstein was back at the top of society as if nothing had happened. This confidence of Epstein was the reason why he did not stop his activities, believing that his money and friends were enough to protect him from any new complaints. The wall of protection that Epstein built for many years began to crumble in November 2018. Its spark was the series of reports from investigative journalist Julie Cabrown of the Miami Herald, which was entitled Perversion of Justice. In this report, Brown sought out and interviewed over 80 victims who were not given a voice in 2008. The articles revealed every detail of the secret non-prosecution agreement, NPA, including the names of the lawyers involved and the extent of the immunity granted to the co-conspirators. Because of this report, the case became a national issue, and there was intense public outrage against Alexander Acosta, who was then serving as Labor Secretary under the Trump administration. Along with the media noise, there was a major development in the legal aspect. In February 2019, U issued a decision. District Judge Kenneth Mara of Florida said the court officially violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act, CVRA, because they concealed from the victims the existence of a plea deal in 2008. This ruling proved that Epstein's sweetheart deal was not only morally wrong, but also illegal. Because of this, prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, SDNY, had a legal basis to re-examine Epstein's activities that occurred outside the jurisdiction of the Florida deal. Federal prosecutors in New York have begun to build a new case based on crimes that occurred in Epstein's Manhattan mansion between 2002 and 2005. They realized that the 2008 immunity agreement was limited only to the Southern District of Florida, and it could not protect Epstein against cases in other states. The FBI contacted victims who had previously filed civil suits, such as Virginia Giuffre and Courtney Wild, to obtain new sworn statements and digital evidence. They also obtained new testimonies from Epstein's former staff, who are ready to speak, because the fear brought by his former influence is gone. While all this is happening, Epstein remains comfortable on his trip to Europe. At that time, he was in Paris, and seemed to not feel the danger that awaited him in America. He did not know that the agents of the SDNY and FBI had already drafted a new indictment with a case of sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. This new case is more detailed and more serious than the investigation in 2005. The timing of his return to the United States became the final step for him to finally fall into the hands of the law that would end his decade of evading justice. On the night of the 6th of July 2019, Epstein's Gulfstream private jet landed at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey after his trip from Paris, France. As soon as he got off the plane, he was met by federal agents and immediately arrested under a warrant issued by the Southern District of New York, SDNY. He was not able to go home to his mansion in Manhattan because he was immediately taken into the custody of authorities. The cases filed against him were sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking in connection with the recruitment and abuse of girls in New York and Florida from 2002 to 2005. Along with his arrest, the FBI conducted a large-scale raid on his 7-story mansion on the Upper East Side. Because Epstein's staff did not open the doors, agents used sledgehammers to break down the doors and enter the building. Inside the property, investigators focused on a large safe located in his office. When the safe was opened, the agents obtained thousands of obscene photos of young girls who looked like minors. Also seen inside the vault were bundles of cash, many pieces of diamonds, and a fake Austrian passport with a different name but with Epstein's photo on it. This passport has entry stamps from countries such as Saudi Arabia and France, which proves that he uses it for his international travel. Aside from the safe, the agents also took the computer servers, hard drives, and electronic devices from the mansion. It was seen in the records that the whole house had a sophisticated surveillance system hidden in picture frames and objects inside the rooms. All of this evidence was brought to the FBI laboratory for digital forensics. While collecting the items, Epstein was brought to the Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC, in Lower Manhattan, a high-security federal detention facility. He was placed in a cell while awaiting his bail hearing. On the 18th of July 2019, Epstein appeared in court to request that he be allowed to post bail and remain at his mansion while under electronic monitoring. His lawyers offered $77 million worth of property and assets as bond. However, U.S. District Judge Richard Berman requested this. The court said that Epstein was a flight risk because of his fake passport and large wealth, and also a danger to the community because of the weight of the evidence obtained in the raid. Because of this, Epstein was returned to MCC without bail. His imprisonment caused panic among his former political and business connections, because they knew that the acquired hard drives and black books could release information that had long been hidden. While Epstein was imprisoned in the MCC, the battle shifted from physical arrest to documents hidden in the courts. The so-called Epstein files are not just a set of papers, but a collection of civil court records, flight logs, and the famous little black book that are gradually being released to the public. The most important part of it came from the civil lawsuit of Virginia Giuffre, Laban K. Ghislaine Maxwell, on the 9th of August 2019, a day before the change in Epstein's situation inside the Zelda. More than 2,000 pages of previously sealed documents were ordered by the court to be unsealed. Here, the public first saw the sworn depositions where the victims directly named the powerful people who were with or saw Epstein's activities. Included in these documents are the flight logs that Epstein's own pilot, David Rogers, submitted. Detailed in these records is every flight of Epstein's Boeing 727 jet, including the date, time, and who the passengers were. The names of Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, and other well-known personalities in the world of business and entertainment appeared here, and the Little Black Book, which was obtained from Epstein's former butler, Alfredo Rodriguez, contains over 1,500 entries of contact information. Here you can find the home addresses, personal phone numbers, and emails of royalty, politicians, and billionaires. It is important to clarify that according to legal experts, the inclusion of a name on these lists does not automatically mean that they committed a crime, but rather it is evidence of the extent of Epstein's social network. By the years 2025 and 2026, the definition of the Epstein files further expanded due to the passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Under this law, the Department of Justice was obligated to release all unclassified records related to the investigation of Epstein. The Epstein Library was established, an online repository where over 6 million pages of documents were uploaded. This includes internal memos of the FBI, interview summaries of agents, and records of Epstein's financial transactions with banks such as JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank. These files showed how Epstein was able to transfer millions of dollars to fund his operation without being blocked by anti-money laundering systems. These documents also revealed settlement records between Epstein and his victims. It was found in the papers that Epstein paid large sums such as $500,000 to Virginia Giuffre in 2009. That included a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, to keep the victims silent. The release of these files led to successive resignations of several officials in universities and companies who received money from him. Despite the amount of information, the documents also left questions about who the co-conspirators are, who have not yet been formally charged. These files served as evidence that Epstein's case was not just about one person, but about a large system that protected him for a long time. On the early morning of the 10th of August 2019, while the whole world was focused on the new unsealed documents from the New York court, Epstein was found unconscious inside his cell. In the Special Housing Unit, SHU, of the Metropolitan Correctional Center. According to the official records of the Bureau of Prisons, it was around 6:30 inches the morning when the guards saw him with a bedsheet wrapped around his neck. He was rushed to New York Presbyterian Lower Manhattan Hospital, but was declared dead upon arrival there. This news immediately caused shock because it happened under the custody of the federal government in a facility that should have the highest security. Because of the weight of his connections, issues about how this happened immediately arose. The investigation by the Office of the Inspector General, or IG, discovered that many protocols were not followed that night. The two guards assigned to the SHU, Natova Noel and Michael Thomas, failed to check Epstein's cell every 30 minutes, as the rules dictated. Instead, it was found that they had slept for almost 3 hours and had only falsified their logbooks to make it appear that they had made their rounds. Furthermore, Epstein's cellmate was transferred to another Zelda the previous day. Because he was left alone, the recommendation was violated. After a previous incident on July 23, where he was also found with scratches on his neck. Another big question arose about the surveillance cameras inside the MCC. According to the FBI, the two cameras pointed at Epstein's cell did not work or malfunctioned that night, so there was no video footage of the actual events inside or outside the door of his cell. When it comes to the autopsy, the chief medical examiner of New York City, Dr. Barbara Sampson, issued a ruling that Epstein ended his own life by hanging. But this ruling was questioned by Dr. Michael Baden, a well-known pathologist hired by Epstein's family to observe. Doctor said, "The broken neck of Epstein, particularly the broken hyoid bone, is more often seen in cases of suffocation or strangulation than in hanging. the anomalies in the MCC and the timing of his death that happened while more names were emerging in the files. The reason why theories about what really happened did not stop. Many people doubted whether he was just allowed to die or if other people were directly involved to ensure that he could no longer speak at the trial. In 2021, guards Noel and Thomas admitted to falsifying records, but were not imprisoned under a deferred prosecution agreement. At the end of 2026, the official legal ruling remains that he ended his own life, but the files he left behind continue to provide information that he did not tell while he was still alive. Because the main accused is dead, the attention of the law has completely shifted to his companion, Ghislaine Maxwell, and to the banks that channeled his money.